Good morning and Happy New Year, and welcome to another video insight from Henry Consulting, the management consulting firm for the $150 billion display industry. And today I just wanted to do something a little bit provocative, and that is talk about the market strategies of the top two Korean players in the display industry. And actually some thinking I've been having over Christmas about actually how their strategy decisions are becoming more and more similar. And yet SDC has been decidedly more profitable in the past than LGD. And so the question I want to pose through this little bit of discussion is it strategy or is it execution? And, as a strategist, I'd love to say it's all strategy, but I fear to say that some of this, it really is execution. So for me, the starting point of this was this amazing talk of JS Chair a few months ago at IMID. He basically outlined a version of the world where emissive displays, so OLEDs and micro LED, would be $100 billion at some point fairly soon, and that his own firm would be half of that, so $50 billion. And if you realize that today SDC is about half that, then you realize that taking into consideration price erosion, that's actually a massive revenue gain goal. But the thing that really occurred to me, and I will move this out of the way, is that how similar the actual big strategic decisions are between the two firms on a range of different businesses. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So my big question that I'm posing is, if SDC and LGD are beginning to make very similar strategy decisions, then does that mean that their results will trend towards each other? In other words, LGD will improve or SDC will slightly erode? And what is the role then of strategic decisions and execution in being one of the industry's best one or two in the industry? And I will disclose a bias. I was part of the team that helped form LGD, or LG Philips LCD, 2 decades ago. So for me, the Twin Towers building and LGD is where my heart is. But I have to say, SDC on the whole has shown better execution across actually a range of decisions that are actually pretty similar for both. So here are the 8 businesses I would argue that for now that we should be considering if you deconstruct both of the two leaders. And as you can see, both of the two Korean leaders are exiting LCD. LGD still has China facilities for LCD for TV, and actually still has IT products being produced in Korea, but is moving towards exit, whereas SDC is already done and dusted and is out. We can talk about the Flex OLED business, and I actually think that's the really important one in terms of defining the difference in economics, where SDC is substantially bigger market position than LGD. Turning to the television business, that's flipped the other way around, where LGD is miles ahead on capacity, on product portfolio, but with a technology that's arguably not quite as good as the QD OLED. And then we're going to talk about the other businesses here. And again, the big thesis I wonder about is it strategy or is it execution? So the first one is that both businesses are on their way out of LCD. And that is true. So the strategy is similar between the two, but the execution has been different in that SDC led the way out and actually stopped at the end of Q2 2022 with any sort of LCD, whereas LGD still has facilities in China, and I think they still have some interest in remaining in the IT products LCD land, which will slightly change their economic profile. If you talk about Flex OLED, and here we're only talking about the Flex part, not rigid OLED, where SDC also has a business. But basically, this is the Flex OLED displays for something like the Apple phones, the Galaxy phones, a little bit of Huawei. But basically, SDC is 2.5 times at least ahead. And for SDC, this is a core business. And a very important business and a sizable business. And for LGD, I've always got the impression they're somewhat ambivalent about their market position here. They've always been less profitable in this, and it's not exactly clear why. But I think it's the scale of the SDC business here in smartphones and their clout that makes the difference. But they probably all purchase similar materials. The equipment's relatively similar. I can't imagine the yields are that different. So what you can think about overhead recovery and certainly the total size of the business, but it's still a little bit surprising that this probably so much changes the outcome of the economics of SDC versus LGD. If you then talk about the TV space, LGD is 7-1 ahead in capacity, but they have a white OLED product being compared with Samsung's QD OLED. Now, in the past, I would have just argued LGD is miles ahead. They have substantially more scale and more experience. They probably have much better IGZO yields. So I would have thought LGD would be killing it in this space. But actually, the SDC product is simply a better one. And it's actually the TV I've now got at home. And it's amazing. The color performance, in particular, the reds are just absolutely amazing. And so, you know, there is some color washout with white OLED that you just don't see with QD OLED. And so that's the strategy question here for LGD, is given their category leadership in this space, how do they respond to a technology threat of simply a better technology, even though that technology probably is even less profitable? Then we can talk about foldables. And again, here, this is one where the SDC has category leadership here. And I really don't think anybody else in the industry has quite the level of a scale in foldable products as SDC has. Now, LGD could claim that they have a rollable television, and yet they've really not pushed that as hard as they could. I mean, it seems to be a very, very niche business. And I'd like to see LGD doing something to build up a category in this space. Now, where LGD really is making a thrust, and Samsung, frankly, silent, is the whole question of transparent OLEDs. And here I have to say I think Samsung's thinking is actually probably a little better. Transparent OLEDs have been sort of thought of for retail point of sale, signage applications for quite a while, but the color gamut's always been poor. It's always been a difficult technology to implement, and it clearly also then needs to go through VAR distribution chains. And so it's not there's some market building that has to happen to get this to happen. So LGD is trying to make a big push in transparent. And it's not clear to me that this is going to be so simple, because there's quite a lot of, as I say, value chain building that needs to happen to support this business. And hence, I'm worried about the scale this will actually be. Now, where they both seem to be actually in line now is both of them seem to be going for Gen 8.7 half cut. Samsung started with working with Allvac on full 8.7, but most of the business press in Korea now thinks that they're moving towards half cut, as both of them want to support the tandem structures that Apple wants for iPad for the future. So it actually seems that here their strategies may well be in line. And actually, I consider them to be equals here in terms of equipment expertise. And arguably, you could say that LGD is better at IGZO for the backplane, and better relationships with Apple. So overall here, I wonder that other than timing, where SDC seems to be a little ahead, this could be one where LGD does quite well. And again, then you start talking about OLEDs for automotive, and both players are talking about this here. And I think, again, this is a horse race which will come down to execution. Both LGD and SDC have strong reasons to be able to play, and it will really come down to who can get the automotive brands on board the best and execute the best. And then the final decision, where I think I would argue that SDC seems a little ahead, is the discussion of how to get into the value chain for microdisplays for AR, VR. And it looks like Samsung is close on making a call. AMOLED on silicon seems to be the obvious choice for the technology bet, but they're actually putting together all of the pieces where they're, agreeing here, or actually it's based on a red micro LED, so they may be thinking about micro LEDs here, but they're basically talking about that being a bottleneck and waveguides. But fine, there's very clearly an advanced discussion within SDC of how to play in that space. So that then is the 8 businesses of LGD and SDC, and as you can see, in most cases they're making similar decisions. There are some differences. So scale in Flex OLED for smartphone is on the SDC side, whereas scale for TV is on the LGD side. They are making some similar bets on large panel OLED for both automotive and for IT products. And so the question may come down to that it's less about strategy and more about execution. And so that's what fascinates me, and I would love the inputs of all of my community. What do you think are the important things here? it's pretty clear that the actual financial results of LGD and SDC have been very different. And is this a function of strategy, or is this a function of execution? And what should LGD do now to pull back the gap? Anyway, food for thought.